Dunstan Horse Feeds Dressage to Denmark. And just a little bit about what's actually happening here. So we've got 6 New Zealand riders that have put their hand up to contest for a ride to the FEI Dressage World Championships in Herning in Denmark in August later this year. So the combinations must first earn FEI qualifying scores in the Grand Prix of 66%. And so that's the minimum eligibility requirement, and qualification is then overlaid by the ESNZ selection criteria. And because COVID has seriously restricted the competitions for the home-based New Zealand riders, a lot rests on the performances from limited opportunities here in New Zealand at the moment and Australia. So I just hand over to Julie and Frankie up in the commentary box.
Good afternoon, everyone. Julie and Frankie here. We're going to be talking you through the tests today. We want to talk to you a little bit too about the riders that are in the test. So we'll go through the start list very shortly. Here we are. We have the start list for today. So the first rider in will be Vanessa Way, a very talented Grand Prix rider who has brought a number of horses through to Grand Prix. And following her will be Gailene Leonard on Jax Johnson, and this is their first season in Grand Prix, a very exciting horse. Following that will be Oborn, who is a New Zealander who has been based in Australia for some years and has come back to New Zealand, but he's riding under the Australian flag.
And that's the bell for Vanessa Way and NSC Timimor Prequel. Start a bit quickly.
Into the arena now we have Vanessa Way coming through to the halt, and the first rider in our Grand Prix class, CDI 3-star, hoping to gain a minimum eligibility score to count towards possible selection for the World Championships later this year in August. And moving straight away into a lovely extended trot.
This is the youngest horse in the class, only 9 years old, which is relatively young for a Grand Prix.
Absolutely. And last season he was completing small tour, so this is a big step up for him, but Vanessa is well up to this task. Here in the Grand Prix, the half passes are quite steep. They go from one side of the arena to the other. Lost a tiny bit of flow there, but some nice steps across. Looked more easy this rain for him. And now they halt and rein back. Lovely balanced halt there. And lovely crisp steps back. They looked really super. And now we show another extended trot.
Interestingly, this horse used to react quite a lot to the atmosphere, but today he seems to be coping really well.
Absolutely. So out of the extended trot, directly into Passage, which is a very cadenced, almost trot, and then on the spot to Piaffe. And at this level, we're looking to see the lowering of the haunches, which was quite clear in that visual that you just had. And they need to do around 12 to 15 steps. And a transition into walk. This is often very difficult to get a relaxed and powerful walk after the Passage Piaffe tour.
I think I'd like to see him cover just a little bit more ground, just show a little more purpose in that extended walk.
Agree, yeah. And here she picks him up into the collected walk, a really clear change of frame there. And I know when you're riding this collected walk, it seems like this is a long way to ride. The collected walk goes for a long time. And then as they come around here, picking up Passage at M. There we go. So we're looking for even cadence, looking for some nice lift, and the piaffe on the spot here. There's a little sticky here. And then there's a mark for the transitions into and out of the piaffe as well. As a judge, there's a lot of scores to give in this test, a lot to watch for.
From passage to collected canter is quite a challenging movement as well, isn't it? And he just took that in his stride.
Absolutely. And here showing a nice uphill frame. And now he's to show 9 changes of lead every 2 strides.
He made that look easy, didn't he?
Didn't he just? Well done, Vanessa. And now extended canter. And a flying change, which needs to be on the straight line again, so they're not allowed to cheat by putting the change in on the corner, and Vanessa knows that very well. And here we show a zigzag of flying changes and half passes, and they have to count these steps, so they're doing 6 strides one way, flying change, 6 strides across, flying change, and then back to the centre line. And now 15 1-tempies. Oh,
just a little hiccup in the middle.
Yeah, started so well. It was a pity.
But he is a young horse and he's got a big future, so
yeah,
I'm sure
well
Vanessa
said,
won't
Frankie.
be disappointed with that.
Yeah. And now she's going to be setting him up for a full pirouettes on the centre line. Good, some nice sitting there, a clearly cadenced and balanced pirouette. Oh, good boy. It's great to see a horse in its first Grand Prix actually do so well.
Oh, it's really doing well. Lost a little bit of forward going into that transition.
Yes, and now another transition into the extended. And this test is actually very taxing on the horses, so quite often it's really hard to keep the power going into this last extension. And then they turn up the centre line, and on the centre line transition to passage, and then a piaffe for X in the middle of the arena. And remember, we're looking for 12 to 15 steps of piaffe. So here we go. See if you can count them. Yep, met the requirements. Good boy. And off into passage. It's just getting a little ragged behind here. And again, that's that. It's very hard to keep the energy and the power all the way through the test. Oh, good job, Vanessa. Well done.
Super combination to keep an eye on for the future.
Absolutely, one to really watch for. So well done. We'll hand back to you now, Kieran.
Thanks, Julie. And yes, that was Vanessa Way and NSC Timbermore prequel. And because Vanessa is a full-time dressage coach and trainer, comes from Oborn in the Taranaki, born in California in the USA, and also 49 years of age herself. She's riding the 9-year-old NSC Timbermore prequel. And his paddock name is actually he's known as Wills. Bred by Vanessa Way and Brooke Hughes, and also bred, the breeder was Kerry Sanders and Timbermore Sport Horses. It's a Hanoverian by Prestige VDL out of Crystal. And some of the things about Vanessa as well is her best performance today was actually her Grand Prix at the Oro Dressage by the Lake at Takapoto on NSC Andreas, and he gave her a magical, most magical feeling. But one of the words of wisdom out of Vanessa herself is that any words of encouragement for fellow riders stepping up to the level is stick to your own personal goals and be satisfied with what you've achieved. That's Vanessa Way and NSC Timbermore prequel. Our next horse to go here at the Dunstan Dressage to Denmark, and that will be Gailene Leonard and Jax Johnson. Gailene is a farm manager. She's from Te Araha in the Waikato, and she's riding the 17 hands Jax Johnson, owned by Betty and Gailene Leonard, bred by Rania Todd and David Woolley, and the sire is Johnson and out of the dam is Alamo, and best performances date for Gailene is the Bay of Plenty Champs in October of 21 with a 72% in the Grand Prix in his first competition at that level.
While we're waiting for Gailene to come into the arena, I'll talk to you a little bit about some other New Zealand riders that we've got trying to vie for a place in the World Championships. So overseas at the moment we have John Thompson, who's based in Australia with his stallion Chemistry. John and Chemistry have actually gained 2 minimum eligibility scores, so they're well on their way to possible selection for the World Championships. Over in the Netherlands we have Melissa Galloway with Windermere Jabay W, who actually is related to the horse you're going to be seeing in the arena shortly. They're currently based with Van Alst horses, and recently gained their first minimum eligibility score at a CDI in Belgium. And at that CDI in the Grand Prix she scored over 68% to gain her minimum eligibility, and then went on to score over 70% and second place in the Grand Prix Special. And I'll talk to you about other riders later because I can see Gailene making her way in. So back to you, Karen.
Thanks, Julie. And into the arena now is Gailene Leonard and Jax Johnson. And of course, as we were saying before, Gailene comes from Te Araha in the Waikato, farm manager, and she's riding the 17 hands Jax Johnson, who was bred by Rania Todd and David Woolley. A sire is Johnson, and the dam is Alamo. So, as we wait for our judges,
so we can tell you that this is Gailene's first season riding this horse in Grand Prix, and she competed at the Bay of Championships show in her first start in Grand Prix with this horse and gained over 70%. So let's hope that Gailene is able to produce some of that form here again today.
I know Gailene's goal is to achieve 75% in Grand Prix, so wouldn't it be lovely if she was able to do that today?
Oh, that would be a dream come true, wouldn't it?
It really would. Gailene was a very successful show rider, and so was her mother, Betty Leonard, both very well known in showing circles in New Zealand before Gailene took up dressage. I'm pretty sure from memory Betty Leonard also rode at FEI level, her mother.
Very interesting. And the breeders, Rania and David, they're from Auckland. I know David very well. I've known him for many years, way back in Pony Club days, and it's really nice. I know he's here today and will be eagerly waiting to see how this horse does. And he and Rania also bred the horse that Melissa Galloway is riding in the Netherlands. I understand there might be a couple of technical hitches with the scoring iPads by the looks of things, so that's what the hold-up is at the moment, if you're wondering why it's taking a little while between horses. Which is always a little difficult for the riders because, you know, they do warm up and prepare very much to go bang on their time, don't they?
They do, and it can be quite off-putting if you end up overwarming your horse. Sometimes you get in there and they feel a little tired or a bit lacklustre, and really your time
and
to go.
And that's the bell for Gailene Leonard and Jax Johnson.
So here we go. We're
on the journey. Very elegant combination, aren't they?
Yeah, really quite cool to see. Let's watch this. Nice balance there in the halt. And away we go. Really positive steps here.
Lovely cadence this horse has.
And a really nice uphill way of going. The graphic on your screen was actually describing the horse who went previously. So this is Gailene Leonard, and she's riding Jax Johnson. She's really using the short sides to good effect here to get the horse back on his haunches after the extension, which is great going. And now here we're going sideways through into the half pass, very steep half pass.
Lost a little bit just before the change of hand, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, just a little. I think he tries too hard.
Maybe.
I thought she was going to forget that hop there for a minute. Crisp steps back again and nicely forward. Here in, straight off into the extension. Here you can see clearly how the hind foot is landing past the footprint of the front foot and
great
directly.
hock action, isn't it, from behind?
Super, really clear, rounded action. And here into the passage, looking like he's done that all his life.
Gailene said that's his party trick.
Yeah, he does get a little bit over the front leg in that particular piaffe, but beautifully out of it into a nicely balanced and pushing passage. Now, as we mentioned before, sometimes it's really hard to get the horse back from those super collected movements and out and extending the frame into the extended walk and keep the rhythm in the walk. But that was very clear walk rhythm. And now has to collect. And of course the horses are kind of anticipating what might be coming next, and a common thing that can happen in the collected walk is the horse is anticipating the piaffe particularly, but he managed to keep a good lid on that and keep the activity.
He did. He looks quite light in the hand too, doesn't he?
Yeah. Again, you can see a clear lowering of the haunches here. The tail is getting closer to the ground. Very slight loss of balance coming out, but that's really nothing much to worry about. Nobody's perfect.
That is such a hard transition,
isn't it?
From that passage to canter, it really is.
And especially when the passage has that much cadence as this horse has.
Of course, the Johnson line is well known all over Europe. So many of these horses doing well in dressage.
Very true. And here we've got the changes every 2 strides.
Very
nicely
clean,
done.
very straight, lovely.
God, wow. That was
covering the ground.
impressive, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then she's got to keep him straight, collect and change.
Well, that change may have been his idea, to be honest.
You're right. She went collect and he went quick, I'll change. Oops, a little bit loss of balance in the change over there.
Quite a hard movement though, this kind of change of hand, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really difficult to ride this. And that, although there was a little bobble at the beginning, the finish was really nice.
And I thought it was well positioned at the centre line.
Yeah. Got him. well done. And he actually looked like he'd carry on doing those all day if she wanted.
I think he would.
And so now preparing for the pirouette. Again, see that lowering of the haunches. That tail is actually landing on the ground.
It is.
Yeah. Really important. This is a true collection. Oops, a little bit
lost balance.
Yeah,
a little bit big, maybe.
I think he put those hind legs almost too far under, didn't he?
He did. He tried too hard.
And now into the last extended trot. You see that perhaps the power is not as much as at the beginning, but it's still pretty good. So hard to keep that energy all the way through the test, but they're doing really well here. And then into passage again. See how the knees lift. When we're looking for a good passage, we're quite often looking to see, is that forearm getting somewhere near horizontal? And in the piaffe, that the hind leg, you see, it's a little stepping out with that right hind.
This is his first season at Grand Prix, so again, 12-year-old horse, very exciting.
Yeah, and it is just, almost tiredness by the end of the test often, isn't it?
It is.
Oh, well done, Gailene. That was really interesting to see, and lovely smile on her face.
Very happy.
Yeah.
Very happy. I would be too.
Yeah, a lot of highlights in that test.
Absolutely, there was.
Really well done, Gailene. Great to see it. And that's the first time I've seen this horse do Grand Prix, as it was with Vanessa's horse as well. And it's really awesome to see these young horses.
He was an incredibly volatile horse when he was younger, this horse. And Gailene's had a very interesting journey with him. So all credit to her that we see him out here doing Grand Prix today and doing such a good job.
Absolutely, Frankie. I guess we should stop hogging the microphone and head back to you, Karen.
Thanks, ladies, and thank you, Julie and Frankie, for your comments there. And so that was Gailene Leonard and Jack Johnson, and because Gailene is a farm manager from Te Araha in the Waikato. And she's riding the 12-year-old Jack Johnson, who was bred by Rania Todd and David Woolley. And also the sire is Johnson out of La Mode. And some words of advice and encouragement for riders that Gailene actually says is practice, practice, practice. Find yourself a trainer that suits you and take regular lessons. And just a bit of words about Jack Johnson. As Gailene says, does he have any characteristics or quirks? Carrots. She grows them especially for him, and he knows where to get them in the vegetable garden. So I would say it's one spoiled horse there. So if you've just joined us here, it's the Dunstan Dressage for Denmark. We're in class 901, the Dunstan Horse Feeds FEI Grand Prix CDI. Our next horse into the arena is Cooper Oborn and Aphrodite. And Cooper is riding for Australia. He lives in Palmerston North. He's a full-time horse trainer and rider. He's 31 years of age, riding the 14-year-old Aphrodite, a 16.2 hands high, owned by Belinda and Emily Stutchbury, owned by them as well, and it's a Anna Moore. And of course the sponsors of Cooper are Antares, Maddox Saddlery and Harrison Lane. Best performance to date for Cooper was the North Island Grand Prix at 71.9% in first place. And that's the bell for Cooper Oborn and Aphrodite.
So here we have Cooper, based for many years in Australia, but moved to New Zealand a few years ago. Frankie, you'll know he's down your way.
Yeah. He's moving, we're losing him. He's moving from Palmerston North to the Wairarapa.
Still reasonably close.
It is.
And there we go into a nice, what looks to be a square halt from this angle. And we should just tell you that we've got 5 judges around the arena today. They're all from New Zealand, but they're all FEI judges. And of course they all get a slightly different view from where they're sitting, just like we're getting a different view than they are. And here into the extended trot. And a clear transition back to collected. You can really see the difference there. Cooper here showing a really nice forward hand, not that the others haven't, but I'm just really noticing that with Cooper here.
And this horse is coming off the ground and showing a bit of cadence in his winner work.
It looks to be quite nice positioning here in the half pass. Finished really well, kept the flow all the way through. Just came a little bit off the bit, perhaps through that corner, but it was only momentary. And then we go nice crisp steps back. Good to see so far. We've had 3 nice balanced halts and lean backs. Often something the horses struggle with because they want to go forwards and oh my goodness, we're going backwards.
Could come through maybe a little more from behind.
Yeah, I think can lift up through the shoulders a wee bit.
Good rhythm.
Yes, absolutely. And here we have the passage. Here in the piaffe, it looks to be more or less on the spot. Perhaps a little higher behind than we would ideally like, but you know, it's
just missed that first step out of the piaffe, didn't she?
Yeah. And here into the walk, and you can see Cooper there take his legs off and just kind of like refresh and make sure that he's giving a nice feel to his horse.
I'll just ask.
Cooper was a force to be reckoned with in the eventing circles as well, and changed codes to dressage.
Yes. There you go. Something we see, I don't know, these little snippets about Cooper, so it's really interesting to hear. And Vanessa Way also did some eventing.
A little eventing, she did.
A little bobble there going into the passage, but quickly back into the rhythm. And this is a better piaffe than the first one in my opinion. But then starts travelling forward.
And better coming out of it as well.
Absolutely.
Judge Mira Love looking right.
Yes, you're right. And there you see how sometimes it's quite difficult to go from the 2-beat passage into the 3-beat, more asymmetrical gait of canter.
Cooper's a very quiet rider. Listens to his horses.
Here we're seeing some slight swinging of the quarters in the change, particularly the change to the right, I think. And always a little bit uncertain when we're looking at the horses, which is the right and the left side, because sometimes they're coming towards us. But nonetheless, he achieved the sequence.
He did. And it looked like from here they looked clean.
Yes. A nice clean change there at the end.
Modest extension, perhaps.
So here in the zigzag, we're wanting the horse to maintain the jump in the canter steps. And the flying change needs to be as clean as the ones on the diagonal. But it's much more difficult to do the flying change when you're coming out of the half pass, and you've got a half pass straighten quickly, flying change, go the other way.
And you've got quite a bit to fit in that 60 metres. It might sound like a lot, 60 metres, but it's actually not that long when you're doing that much work down the centre line.
Very true. And here are the 1 tempies.
Well done.
Yeah, really nicely done. So, sequence achieved. Changes looked reasonably straight from where we're sitting, and a little bit expressive as well, which is good. Here I'd like to see more lift through the shoulder and a little bit more under behind. But having said that, it was clearly a pirouette. Just step out a little bit in the pirouette. You can see like the distance the horse moved across the ground was a lot more than the first one.
Was.
Oops. Shouldn't have been a little walk step in there, but hopefully the judges blinked and missed it.
This is nice.
Yeah, clear ground cover there, huh? And here this front-on view of the passage. So this is more or less exactly what the judge at sea is seeing. Unfortunately, had a little loss of impulsion going into the piaffe out of what looked to be quite a nice passage, and also a little loss of balance coming out. So that'll affect the transition mark, not so much the piaffe mark itself. And here he has just lost the collection a little bit in the final passage, and that's that, getting to the end of the test and not being able to maintain necessarily the energy all the way through. So well done, Cooper. The score that we're seeing on the screen, I'm not sure whether that's the final score. So remember that that's the running total of the scores as they're going into the computer. Trending, that's the word we're looking for. It's the trending score for the riders as they're going through the test, and we'll get their final score shortly. And we're going to hand back to Kieran now.
Thanks. Commentary there from Frankie and Julie in the commentary box. And so it's Cooper Oborn and Aphrodite, and because Cooper is a horse trainer and rider from Palmerston North, he's riding for Australia. We won't hold that too far against him. And he's 31 years of age, and he's riding the 14-year-old Aphrodite, which is 16.2 hands, owned by Belinda and Emily Stutchbury, and bred by them as well, which is a Anamore. And best performance to date for Cooper has been the North Island Grand Prix at 71.9% in first place. And Cooper was asked a couple of questions, does your horse have any funny characteristics or quirks? And he says she is well known for her sassy personality in the stable and loves a prize giving, and that we know as well. So if you've just joined us here at Taupo, we are with the Dunstan Horse Feeds Dressage for Denmark. And of course, there's 6 New Zealand riders that have put their hand up to ride in this class. And our next horse is into the arena now, and that is Ruakura Satori, MH, and William Miller. And because William is a full-time rider from Tawhiri in the Waikato, and he's riding the 18-year-old Ruakura Satori MH. Is 165 centimetres, owned by Rosemary Carter and Brett Kendall and William Miller, bred by Matthews Hanoverians, and it's a Hanoverian by De Niro. As William says, it was purchased. They purchased Rob, who is his paddock name, as a foal, and has trained him through to Grand Prix, and he's very humbled by what they've achieved on their journey together. And of course, Rosemary Carter and Brett Kendall have been friends and supporters of Bill's, and that's the bell for William Miller and Ruakura Satori MH.
So here we go with this lovely chestnut horse. Really looking forward to seeing what he's going to bring to the arena today. He's a really nice boy. We've been watching him for a number of years now. He comes to our local dressage group quite often, and it's lovely to see Bill back on the horse, having had quite a nasty accident fairly recently.
It's lovely to see him out here with his 2 Grand Prix horses. Must admit, this is my favourite. I really like this horse.
Just as well we're not judging, Frank. We'll have prejudged them all. Okay, so into the arena they come, and nicely balanced coming into the halt here. Not quite square. Well, that was going to be a square one, but he didn't quite finish it off.
And the De Niro horses, Donohue lines, have held their own in the dressage arena. I think Donohue was the best performed dressage stallion in the world for a couple of years.
Yeah, it's great to have these lines here in New Zealand, isn't it?
It's really exciting.
It was a very capable extended trot. For a higher mark, probably needed to have a little more power coming through. We could be a little quieter in the contact at times. Really lovely, even crossing of the legs we're seeing here. I'd like to see a little more flow.
Good change of bend, I thought.
Yeah, for sure. And here we're coming across. Good little rider trick that, when you're not quite sure you're going to get to the sidewall, you look behind you and it helps you get across, and it did the job.
It did.
Nice, so nice even steps back.
Perhaps dragging just a little bit, but yeah, definitely good attempt.
Yeah, for sure. Really easy change of frame here. Could have a little more power, and now we go into the passage. Could have a little more lift and energy here in the passage, but really nicely into the piaffe.
Everything's very fluent, isn't it?
And back into passage again, and again it didn't look like anyone was having to try too hard to achieve that, which is really what we want. We want it to look like the horse is doing it for themselves. And now into the extended walk.
Maybe like to see him come out from the shoulder a little bit more and maybe cover the ground.
Yeah, if you look at where the footprints are, he is over tracking, but not as much as some horses that we've seen. And here Bill's preparing him a little for the collection. And now we have the transition directly into passage. Well done.
That looked easy.
Again, could be a little bit more evenly pushing. Sometimes the toes are a little dragging.
What the FEI definition is, isn't the front leg supposed to come halfway up the cannon of the hind?
And we're looking for that lift through the forearm a little more, so become a little bit more horizontal.
Good transition to canter.
Yeah,
very
nice and smooth.
Very easy.
So now we have the 2 tempies, and we need 9 of these.
Good boy.
Yeah, so really achieved the sequence no problem. Could be a little bit more uphill, I'd say. He's just a little bit, sometimes getting a little too low in the pole.
I notice occasionally he's a little bit mouthy in contact.
Yeah. Again, really nicely and smoothly into that flying change, still on the diagonal. And now we have the zigzag. Straight, change. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, go. Good. Done. And again, he's just getting a little low in the pole, but the actual half passes themselves in terms of the positioning and the flow is quite good.
And this rider has a real knack for teaching changes.
Yeah, good again.
Super.
Yeah, really nice straight changes. And if you were going to be critical, you'd just say he just needs to lift that pole a wee bit, become a little more uphill. Here in the canter pirouette, he's actually stepped quite a long way off the centre line in that turn, so that will mark him down a little bit, because ideally what we want to see is that the hind legs turn on about the size of a dinner plate, This one is
Frankie and
better
Julie,
too.
just while you're listening, there will be a 5-minute break in between Bill and Chelsea. So come back to me and then I'll hand back to you.
Roger that. So now we're into that extended trot again.
I notice he's dropped the curb rein.
Yes.
So perhaps just appreciating the horse was starting to get a little bit in the hand.
Yes, could well have been too, or maybe just, Bill has a little trouble with his hands, so sometimes it's not always easy to keep the rein, so maybe he just lost it.
Considering the accident he had, and it wasn't that long ago, he's amazing out here doing this today.
It's incredible, yeah. Well done, Bill. That last centre line was actually really nice.
Yeah,
good
really
job.
Super. Lovely hold. Lovely combination.
Yeah, well done. And we know how bad that accident was, and it's really great to see him back out here and on his horse.
And two of them, two horses.
Yeah, exactly. So now we're going to hand over to Karen.
Thanks, Julie, and thank you, Frankie, for your commentary up there. And so we've just had the completion of William Miller and Ruakura Satori MH. And because William is a full-time rider from Tawhiri in the Waikato, and because the paddock name of Ruakura Satori is Rob, and he's 18 years of age, 165 centimetres, owned by Rosemary Carter and Brett Kendall and William Miller, and bred by Matthews Hanoverians in the Northland, and it's a Hanoverian by De Niro, because William purchased Rob as a foal and has trained him through to Grand Prix. He's very humbled by what they've actually achieved in their journey together as well. And of course, Rosemary Carter and Brett Kendall have been long-time friends and supporters of William for a long period of time, and they all own a lot of horses together and been very grateful for their love and support. So if you've just joined us here at the destination for Denmark, we have one rider still to go, and that will be sisters to Etta J and Chelsea Callahan from the Wellington region. And of course, it is actually 6 riders that have actually put their hands up to contest for a ride in the Eco FEI Dressage World Championships in Herning in Denmark in August later this year. So we thank Dunstan Horse Feeds for their sponsorship for this class and their major support for Dressage New Zealand. So the combinations actually must first earn 2 FEI qualifying scores in the Grand Prix of 66%, and that's known as the MER, which is short for the minimum eligibility requirement. And the qualification is then overlaid by the Equestrian Sport New Zealand selection criteria, which you can actually view on Equestrian Sport New Zealand. And because COVID has seriously restricted our competitions here for our home-based New Zealand riders, and a lot rests on performances from limited opportunities that our riders can actually have in New Zealand and Australia. So I'll just hand back to Julie and Frankie.
Thanks, Karen. So while we have a slight break in proceedings, we're going to talk to you a little bit about one of our other riders who is based overseas at the moment, and that is Victoria Wall. She's currently in Germany with her mare Lati Lay, and they're training with Sebastian Heinz, who is the under 25 trainer for Germany, I believe. And hopefully their first competition will be coming up soon in order for them hopefully to gain their minimum eligibility criteria. Now some of you may also be wondering why we have a couple of riders that were originally entered in this class, and unfortunately they're not here, and that's such a shame because they were really hoping to ride at this show and gain minimum eligibility criteria, and that included Vanessa Way on her horse Andreas, and Wendy Williamson on her horse Bon Jovi. Actually, I might have the wrong horse there. We might have to check on that horse. But it's such a shame that they were unable to start at the show due to either injuries to the horses or themselves. And so we really hope that they are able to get back on track as soon as possible, and we wish them well with their horses. Lucerne Dolly was also entered, but unfortunately was unable to start as well. So wishing those riders the best. But meanwhile, we need to carry on with the riders that are here today and see their wonderful performances. And Frankie, it's really interesting seeing the different types of horses and how they all move a little bit differently.
It is, and some of these Grand Prix horses are older horses, so we've seen those bloodlines around for a few years now, and it's nice seeing the new bloodlines coming through as well. A lot of younger horses. Vanessa Way's horse is only 9 years old and doing this Grand Prix and doing a good job of it, so that's exciting for our future. And then we had William Miller on his horse, who's 18 years old, and quite a different type of horse.
Yes.
Both doing Grand Prix work and doing a good job of it, but yeah, very different types of horses.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully we might be just about back live with Chelsea. So at the moment, what we could probably do while we're waiting for the next horse to come in, Frankie, I know your daughter is riding a little bit later, and you won't be with me in the commentary team while she is on, because you're going to be out coaching her. So tell us a little bit about the class she'll be riding in.
So she's riding in the small tour, which is today the Prix St George. I think there may be 6 riders. There have been a few scratchings in that class as well. So that is the first step, I guess, on the FEI levels when you first start doing your FEI tests, and it requires 3 and 4 time changes, canter half pirouettes, and a little counter canter, the extended walk, of course, extended trot, and it's the first step on the ladder for the FEI tests. So my daughter's riding my retired Grand Prix horse, so she is a para-equestrian and is riding able-body today, which is exciting.
Awesome, yeah, so wish her well from me.
Thank you.
When you get back out there with her. So at the moment we don't have updated scores, I believe, for the riders, but hopefully we'll have those to hand soon and be able to get those to you. Where today we have 5 judges from New Zealand judging this class. They're all FEI 4-star or FEI 3-star judges. So we have Sue Hobson judging, and Mura Love, Betty Brown, Helen Hughes Keane, and I'm missing one.
Linda Warren Davies.
Linda Warren Davies, that's who it is, yes. Can't see her from here, that would be why I'm missing that. So those 5 judges are judging this class, and normally for a CDI we would have to have foreign judges, but because obviously of COVID restrictions we can't do that. So today we have got live scoring happening and a video feed which is going to 2 foreign judges who will be seeing the video and basically ratifying the scores of our judges. So the reason for that is to ensure that there isn't nationalist judges judging where we're maybe marking higher, because we really like our riders to go to the World Championships. So
the live scoring is fantastic, isn't it? It's been really good. It's the first time we've had it here in New Zealand, and I find it makes the competition so much more interesting watching when you see the scores coming up. And I think it's great we've got it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we have had a little bit of technical hitches with it today, so it's not quite working as well as we would like at the moment, but hopefully things are getting back together again very soon. But yes, it's really quite exciting having the opportunity to be able to have this happen, even though we can't get the foreign judges in here yet. So what's going to happen after this competition, of course, is that our riders have to get these minimum eligibility scores within a certain time frame. So the next opportunity that they will have to gain a minimum eligibility score, because it has to be at an international show, will be some shows in Australia.
We were lucky enough to compete in Australia 2 years ago, and that was to qualify for Tokyo Olympics, and it's a great experience to go over and compete. Even though it's our neighbour and it's only 3.5-4 hours on a plane, it's still quite different over there, and it's lovely getting the different judges and the amazing venues over there. Of course, a lot of our riders have used that in the past to get qualified, but with COVID that's all been stopped, so I think a lot of us are counting our lucky stars. We've even got today happening, this 2-day competition, but it's looking more likely that people will be able to start travelling again and taking their horses over to Australia and further afield in the not too distant future.
Yeah. So at the moment, New Zealanders can travel away and come back to New Zealand. At the moment, other folk can't come in, but this is changing as of the middle of April. Australian citizens will be able to travel to New Zealand, travel from Australia to New Zealand, and then shortly after that we're opening up to other countries in the world as well. So with a bit of luck, we will get a couple of riders over to maybe Sydney CDI, which is in early May, I believe.
Because we've missed our Horse of the Year show. We haven't held that now for the past 2 years due to COVID, so that's sort of bumped it on the head for us, because quite often Australian riders will come over and ride at our Horse of the Year show. So Trans-Tasman swap sort of thing. I see our first scores come up for Cooper Oborn, 65.783.
Awesome.
It's very close. 69.804 for Gailene and Jax Johnson. She will be so thrilled.
Yeah.
Almost hit that 70 odd that you were wanting.
so close. Yeah. No, that's really very good. And we should get Vanessa's up before. I think she was trending about 66% when she left the arena.
Right.
But then
here we go.
Here we are. 66.457 for Vanessa. So if these scores are ratified by the Judges Supervisory Panel, which is looking at these, which is the foreign judges, a score of over 66 is an MER.
Yes,
I believe 66% is the minimum eligibility criteria, and then over the top of that will come the New Zealand criteria. And
so
here
just holding our breath now for Chelsea Callahan.
Yeah, so she's about to enter the arena shortly, and we can see here William Miller, his score was 64.848.
Good score. They're good scores, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Very pleased to see that. So looking likely, well, I shouldn't say likely because you never know, but the JSPs, if they ratify this, it looks like we may have a couple of eligibility scores. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, absolutely.
So we've got a little bit of conferring going on between judges' tables here, so I think they're hopefully getting underway very shortly. Excellent. So I've heard from the technical team that we're back online, and hopefully Chelsea hasn't been too disadvantaged of having to start at a slightly later time than she was anticipating.
I think Andrea Raves is her trainer outside, and Andrea is amazing at keeping riders totally chilled no matter what's going on, whether it's good, bad or ugly. Andrea just keeps everybody calm and cool, so I'm sure Chelsea will be fine.
Awesome to hear. And Andrea, of course, is an amazing stalwart for Dressage New Zealand, both as a sponsor and a trainer, and previously competed at Grand Prix herself. So Karen, shall I hand over to you now? Sounds like Karen may have run away.
I think we've lost him.
So Frankie, we'll keep the audience absolutely on the edges of their seat here.
Waiting for this last combination to come through.
And here she comes through the door now. So Karen, over to you.
This is Chelsea Callahan from Wellington, and she bought this mare unbroken and has taken it right through the grades herself. She has a young horse at home that she's bringing on. It looks very like this one. And Chelsea is an equine artist. She's done some amazing equine paintings for a lot of people. I've got 3 or 4 of her paintings. She's 29 years old. Sisters 2, Etta J is 13, and she is a Frisian Warm Blood Cross. She's 15.3, and she's owned by Bob and Christine Callahan, which is Chelsea's parents.
And here we have Christine entering
Chelsea.
the arena. Sorry, Chelsea entering the arena. Christine is, of course, Chelsea's mother. And a little flying change just before the halt. Technically, that shouldn't happen. Stands good. And off she goes.
The Frisian is quite a different type to the other horses we've seen today.
Yes, their movement is often quite a little bit different, but we're judging the training and the ability to be able to show adjustability in the paces. And here you could see a nice clear difference between the collected trot and the extended trot.
Very steady and very consistent.
And there was some quite nice push in that extended trot.
There was. A lot coming from behind.
Yeah. And here now we're going across into the half pass. Maybe have a little more bending through the body here in the half pass to the right. And as she comes back to the left, it looks like the bending in the body is a little easier this way.
Yes. Very positive steps.
They were perhaps a tad hurried, but still very crisp and clean.
They were. She was lifting and stepping back.
And here now we see coming into the passage. Here I'd like to see the tempo slightly slower in the passage so that she gets a little more lift from the grounding. So
just a little bit creeping in that.
Yeah. And we should probably mention that this again is Chelsea's first season in Grand Prix.
It is, and that she's taken this horse through herself, which is a huge achievement.
Absolutely. And here into the extended walk. Perhaps a little careful here to achieve the rhythm. Make sure it stays a 4-beat, but I'd like to just see a touch more march in that walk and a little more reach in the step. But it was clearly a 4-beat rhythm.
Oh, absolutely.
And here we have the collected walk. Again, very clear rhythm. It's very often that we see in Grand Prix, sometimes that collected walk gets a bit lateral, but we've seen none of that today.
No, we haven't.
Just awesome.
We've had good walks.
Good riders.
Yeah. It's a very hard thing to fix once they do it.
Yeah. Again, just not quite crisp in the transition from Passage to Piaffe, but actually nice coming out of the Piaffe into the Passage. And she's managed that tricky transition. And nice smooth canter steps. Was a pity.
It was.
So what happened there, it looked like she went to change in front and then caught her toe behind, so it wasn't able to make a clean change. So the mare tried, but unfortunately just stumbled a little bit. And here we go, the extended canter.
Definitely a change showing.
Yeah.
Definitely covering the ground.
And now a change. A change of lead, we mean. And here, coming into the zigzag. This is quite hard to come from that extended canter, collect back, turn the corner and be collected enough
It's quite nice to have the energy from the extended canter to go into this, because sometimes you can find they start to lose the engagement and impulsion.
Very true. And now we have the 110 horse. And we're going to see 15 of these.
Very nice.
Good girls.
Well ridden, yeah.
A little pat there for Sisters 2 Etta. Now collecting for the pirouette.
Well prepared, I thought.
Yeah, well done, Chelsea. Tiny little bit a little bit into the bridle to begin with, but we've just quickly recovered that. Oh, nearly lost it on the way out, but well recovered.
This mare always looks like she's trying her hardest,
Doesn't she?
she?
Just, yeah. Really nice clear transition back again. So when the judge makes the score for that movement, they have to take into account the extension and the transitions into and out of it when they arrive at their mark. And into the passage, you can see quite a nice lift in the forearm there.
Just lost a little bit coming into the piaffe.
Yeah, but she actually stayed quite balanced in terms of more or less on the spot by the looks of that. And here we come into the final halt. Good well girls. Done. So this is really lovely to see again another horse in its first season of Grand Prix. And Chelsea wouldn't have ridden very many Grand Prix tests either.
No, she wouldn't. Only what she's done with this mare, so she's doing really well.
So really awesome to see a lovely, harmonious test from these two, and bodes well for the future, I reckon.
It really does.
Yeah. So congratulations, Chelsea, and we hand over to you, Karen. Unfortunately, it looks like our external microphone is down, so we're not hearing Karen in the arena here. So that you were just watching Chelsea Callahan and Sisters 2 Etta J. And they hail from the Wellington region, and the mare is a Frisian warm blood cross, and they're in their first season of Grand Prix.
They scored 71.1% in the Grand Prix freestyle at the Wellington Premier League in 2021.
Which is an awesome score, isn't it?
Fantastic score.
Yeah. And really great to see her make a good fist here of the Grand Prix.
I'm sure she'll be delighted. I know her mum will be thrilled with that.
I reckon.
Right, so I think we might have our technical issues here sorted in the indoor arena, and of course that was our last competitor here for the Dunstan horse feeds dressage for Denmark in the CDI Grand Prix CDI here. And that was our last competitor was Chelsea Callahan, and because Chelsea was 29 years of age, she's an equine artist, comes from the Wellington region, and she was riding the Sisters 2 Etta J, which was a 13-year-old horse, 15.3 hands high, and owned by Bob and Christine Callahan, and bred by Carol McCarthy, and of course that was a Frisian warm blood. So the most current achievement that was for Chelsea has been a 71.1 in the Grand Prix freestyle at the Wellington Premier League in 2021. And because Chelsea this is her first season at competing at Grand Prix level, and because Chelsea was actually asked if there's any quirks about her horse, and she She actually also often jokes that if Etta was a human, she'd be a policewoman. She's very protective and observant in her nature, and nothing gets past her. So we can give you a score update at the moment to what we have, and currently in first place we have Gailene Leonard and Jack Johnson at 69.804, and in second place currently is Vanessa Way on NSC Timber Mill Prequel at 66.457. Third place currently is Cooper Oborn and Aphrodite with a score of 65.783. In fourth place currently is William Miller and Ruakura Satori with a score of 64.848. And the score so far sitting there for Chelsea Callahan and Sisters 2 Etta J is 64.043. So that's the completion of the Dunstan Horsefeeds FEI Grand Prix CDI. And our next class that's due to go is Class 701. And it's the River Park Farm FEI Pre-St. George. And that is, our first horse due to go is RM Susie Q and Debbie Bark. And that will be at 2 o'clock. Over to you. Ladies, we're not too far away from prize giving. Karen speaking. Hey, g'day Aidan. Hey, can I call you back? I'm just in the middle of commentary. Okay, cheers, bye. Grand Prix. Testing, testing, test. Right, so we're not too far away from the prize giving here for the Dunstan Horsefeeds FEI Grand Prix CDI. So we'll just wait for the riders to get in their order, and we thank Dunstan Horse Feeds, and representing Dunstan Horse Feeds is Zoe Gray and Paxton Conda, the marketing manager for Dunstan Horse Feeds, and also we have Sue Hobson, one of our international grade judges. And in first place is Gailene Leonard with a score of 69.804. In second place was Vanessa Way on NSC Timbermill Prequel with a score of 66.457. Third place was Cooper Oborn with a score of 65.783. In fourth place was William Miller with a score of 64.848. And in fifth place was Chelsea Callahan with a score of 64.043 on Sisters 2 Etta J. And of course, without the sponsorship of Dunstan Horse Feeds, we just could not be able to run an event like this, and we thank both Zoe Gray and Paxton Conda for their support and sponsorship of the whole event, and especially the class as well. And of course, Dunstan Horse Feeds is a New Zealand-owned company based in the Waikato, and most of the representatives and people involved in Dunstan Horse Feeds are also equine people themselves, so they actually know what they're talking about if you actually need to have some information, and if you'd actually like any nutritional advice, they're more than happy to sort that out for you. So we'll just wait for the photos from our staff photographer Libby Law. And we'll lead off with Gailene Leonard and Jax Johnston for her lap of honour. And in first place was Gailene Leonard, Jax Johnston with a score of 69.804. In second place was Vanessa Way on NSC Timbermill Prequel with a score of 66.457. In third place was Cooper Oborn on Aphrodite with a score of 65.783. And in fourth place was William Miller and Rokura Satori with a score of 64.848. And in fifth place was Chelsea Callahan on Sisters 2 Etta J with a score of 64.043. Ladies and gentlemen, winners of the Dunstan Horse Feeds FEI Grand Prix CDI. ladies and gentlemen, Gailene Leonard, Jax Johnson, with a score of 69.804, the winner of the Dunstan Horse Feeds FEI Grand Prix. Give them a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. So our next class that's due to go here in the indoor arena is class 701, the River Park Farm FEI Prix St George, with our first horse due to go at 2 o'clock, and that's RM Susie Q and Debbie Bark.